What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the C2C CFB Underdog show. I think Austin named this specifically as difficult as possible for me to announce live. But here we are. I made it. You made it. Ethan made it. We just recorded the podcast for Canvas Caching, so be on the lookout for that in the next 24 to 36 hours where we talk DraftKings main slate. But here we're talking Underdog Pick'ems, specifically maybe for Friday games, some Saturday action as well. Underdog, not surprisingly, has pumped out a bunch of different lines for us to take a look at. Is there a game specifically, Ethan, that you're like, yes, I want to target this one. This one is soft.
I am really hoping to see, and I haven't jumped in here since this morning, but I'm hoping to see this Alabama South Florida game. It looks like we just have touchdowns still. But one thing that I was doing this past weekend that I had some pretty good success with is targeting games that look lopsided. So last week specifically, it was Ohio State playing, was it Akron last week? And then Alabama, Western Kentucky. And checking out the extra points made and the kicking points totals for the kickers and trying to scoop some value there. And it was very nice last week. So I'm hoping to do it again with some of these. If I notice that, you don't think that Bama's really going to kick many field goals against South Florida. So trying to go over on their extra point total, if it makes sense with the implied team total, I'm definitely in line with.
You are a sick individual.
Absolutely, man. You gotta scrape the edges here.
I mean, to be fair, you brought it up and you were like, hey, this feels like in Slag. Hey, this feels like it should be higher, right? And I was like, I think you're actually dead on right. So I'm not surprised that it won. Looking at last week's picks for us, we both made 2. Ethan went 2-0. I went 1-1. So that puts us at 3-1 for myself, 1-3 for Ethan. I'm sorry, 2-2 for Ethan. So don't let Ethan get hot. Yeah, 2-2 for Ethan. Don't let Ethan get hot, everybody. We'll make 2 more again towards the end, if not the end. Should we look at? Let's look at the Friday action.
Such a Friday, yeah, for sure.
It's the first games of the week. I don't think we'll get Indiana props, which I'm totally content with. But SMU BYU has some intrigue to me. Preston Stone. He did have a yard number up at one point. It was like in the 240s, and then I think I saw it at 230, and then this morning it got taken down. Is there a number that you would, if it came back up and you said, I'm going to bet the under if it comes back up, what's that number need to be for you to be confident in an under on Preston Stone yardage?
To be confident in an under? Probably, I think 240 is where I'm comfortable with the under. I feel like if I'm looking at an over, I want it to be probably like 227, something like that. That whole situation is just so strange. It sounds like they really want Kevin Jennings to get game time. And that's concerning as someone who has a ton of Preston Stone all over the place.
Yeah, so the reason why I brought it up was because they have talked about continuing to use Kevin Jennings, and he's playing in random early parts of the game. It sounds like he's coming in at the very end. So blowout last game. So a little bit different. He's still got early action. BYU, they're favorites, I would imagine, but probably not by a ton. So yeah, I think anywhere around 240 makes a lot of sense. In terms of receivers, I kind of like this Romello Brinson under of 30.5 yards.
30.5, you said, is what we're looking at.
30.5.
30.5, yeah. Yeah, I think that's fine. I'm a Brinson stan over here, so it's not one I'm playing, but I get, with the rotation that we see from them and the fact that, BYU probably wants to try and control the ball a little bit. I'm okay with it. And if we get Kevin Jennings in there too, you have the additional factor of, maybe some of that yardage that SMU is looking for. Maybe that comes on the ground a little bit more than we're used to. But yeah, I don't hate that at all.
Yeah, they spread around so much. And Brinson is not like a big, looking at snaps and routes and stuff. It's not like he's gotten some of the most. He's definitely behind Bailey, or he's around Bailey. He's around RJ Maryland. Like there's a lot of cooks in that kitchen. So I kind of like the under there. Is there a receiver that like you're an RJ Maryland fan, right? Is 52.5 too high for you?
I think it's a little too high. I would prefer that to the Brinson line. I think there is a part of me that thinks, well, Maryland didn't get his last week. They're going to go back to him again this week. I definitely like the 43.5 under for Jake Bailey. I know he's like their veteran in that room, but I'm okay with that. I don't hate under on Keyshawn Smith. I know he's like the big take the top off the defense guy. So if you were going to play the over on Keyshawn Smith, I'd probably just play the longest reception higher than 17.5, to be honest.
I still haven't figured out what I like about it in terms of like longest reception or rushing attempt versus like the total number. Yeah. I will say I did like Malik Benson under like 22.5. But that was more because like we've seen their offense, like they don't stretch the field, at least with Malik Benson, like Ja'Kai Douglas, a little bit different story. We've seen them extend the field a little bit with, but just largely they haven't done it, period.
Yeah.
So there's that. Is there, on the BYU side, is there anything that pops up to you?
I kind of like this Jake Retzlaff boosted 1.5 passing touchdown over. I do think that they're going to be able to move the ball against SMU. I mean, we saw week 1, what was that? Was that Nevada that they played?
Yep.
We saw them be able to move the ball. I feel like Retzlaff is competent. He was able to connect with Chase Roberts quite a bit last week. Looking down here, Roberts, they've got so many receivers. I don't really love the reception line. I tend to try and gravitate towards receptions and things like that are a little bit more volume based than the yardage and sporadic things, but I'd probably take the under on his receptions, to be honest, at 3.5.
He was the highly targeted guy last week, but they're going to get they should get Darius Lassiter back, who was a projected, I think he was technically an or, but I think he's really the starter. So it does seem like he'll be back. So now it is a little muddy. I think if I want to bet one of these, I'd probably like the under on Darius Lassiter, just because there's some unknown and Roberts looked good in his first game. Yeah. I was shocked to see Keanu Hill had 5 targets and he had like 1 catch. That was disappointing. Right. But it was good to see 5 catches because I have a lot of underdog drafts.
Yeah.
Lineups with him. I think this running back room is probably ripe for some unders. Hinckley Ropati was named the starter, maybe because LJ Martin was banged up and like maybe they wanted to
who knows?
Yeah. But the under does feel good there at 44.5.
I like LJ Martin's under on 47.5 too.
Yeah, I think both of them are certainly in play.
Yeah, that makes sense. You like anything in the Duke and Northwestern matchup?
Well, we have weather expert Chris Moxley in our Slack. And
we do.
He is firm lake effect will be in effect at Northwestern, which I can get. They're literally on the lake. Like the lake is right, which is super cool. But it's windy. So I think he was saying Malik Murphy under 205.5.
Makes a lot of sense to me too, especially with Northwestern being traditionally a competent defense. I think we've seen a little bit of a slide after Fitzgerald left, but I still think against Duke and against Malik Murphy, they can come up with an under on the 205.5.
My stuff likes the under even without lake effect. There is no lake effect button I can push for the projections. Right. We have them closer to like 170, so I think the under there. I have a weird one. Are you ready?
Ready for it?
Caleb Komolate.
Oof. We doing an under?
We're going over.
Over. Okay.
This is one that will scare you, but I think they're going to run the ball a lot. If you give him like the appropriate usage of like 15, 16%, let's say, let me look real quick. He hits the over. I have him at 17%, which is 6 carries, and he hits 22.7 yards. It is sketchy, but I don't know. 15.5 feels pretty low.
When you're dealing with such small volume like that, like even if you're off like 2 percentage points, like it completely smashes the over that you're expecting.
It is not necessarily the best mathematical decision.
I get it.
But if
Though.
they
Like,
run it a bunch,
yeah,
it's not like, Cam Porter only ran it like 42, 43% of the time last week. It wasn't
yeah,
like, they have a bell cow right next to him. And he saw
yeah.
early snaps. I looked, he had a couple snaps first or second drive, and then he had 2 or 3 carries on like the third or fourth drive. So like it might be a little sketchy, but
Yeah.
I might stand by it and pick this as one of mine later on, just because if I'm going to mention it, I might have to pick it. So we'll see.
That game in general with a 36.5 point spread is sketch.
It's going to be a lot of unders. It's going to be a lot of unders. I saw, AJ Henning, he used to run the ball a lot for Northwestern, right?
He's got 8.5 rushing yard as his pick right here. So,
but he didn't run the ball at all last week, which is interesting. Did you catch the game by chance?
I did not.
I didn't either. I'm like, oh, why did he not run the ball? Like, he
does
was like
he run
pretty
the ball?
good.
Is that something he does?
Yeah, he runs. He runs a little bit. He's a former Michigan guy.
I knew that, but
last year he had. Let's see. I'll pull it up real quick.
Yeah,
he had carries last year, like a significant amount of carries. He had 27 carries for 110 yards.
Okay.
So like I wonder if it's just an anomaly or what. I'm not saying bet it one way or the other. I'm just saying I thought it was interesting. Maybe you had some information. Of course, Underdog gives us 2 tight end bets. Thomas Gordon, Marshall Lang. They both seem like the same dude to me. I'm probably not going to be able to decipher between the two. Yeah. But these are the ones where I'm like, give me 1.5 catches.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I got burned on that last week with Nowakowski. So
Thomas Gordon under or lower 8.5 receiving yards. That's calling my name.
He hit 2 for 28 last week. So watch out.
But like, just real quick, like looking at like the extra points made, like, do you think Northwestern's going to score 3 touchdowns? Because that's, I don't know about that. Like,
no, but I'm not trying to bet something that's like 0.88x lower. Like, I probably will just avoid that.
Well, that's totally fair. I thought this was the under.
That was no. That's the hot tamale. Yeah, higher. So, the biggest game of the week, unbiased is Texas, Michigan.
Totally fair.
Do you have any inklings on what to bet here?
Oh, absolutely. The only one I've touched so far is, you guessed it, Burt Auburn.
Oh my God.
Absolutely.
It's a tight end and kicker show.
I think field goals made higher than 1.5. I'm on board with it. It just seems like I think Texas is going to have success. Michigan's defense is always just so good in the red zone that like 2 field goals made is not extravagant to me at all. And it's boosted. So like, why not?
I would agree with that.
But if we want to go
talk about real players,
actual football players,
yeah, okay.
I don't hate the lower on Jaden Blue's longest rush. 17.5 is what they've got it at right now. To me, that feels a little high for what we should expect against Michigan. But again, we're still kind of feeling out this longest rush, longest reception thing. But to me, it makes sense that if you've got a pretty stifling defense, like 17.5 yards means he not only gets past the first level, but also makes the second level miss. And I don't know. I respect that Michigan defense.
Well, I appreciate that. I like the Samaj Morgan under at 28.5.
Yeah.
This offense is not good. It's not good. And it's not going to get better in 1 week. And, he is very much a fast player, right? He's a returner. He's got some speed to him. But, like, I don't think they have a way to get him the football besides maybe, like, a couple screens. But, like, he still has to make a play. 28.5 is a lot. He didn't hit that last week against Fresno. He had 2 for 8 with 4 targets, So
are you worried at all, though, that they're going to have to throw the ball in the second half? Like if Texas starts fast?
They still have to throw well. It's Davis Warren and Alex Orji. Their game plan can't possibly be throw the ball a lot, which I'm not, I know you didn't just say that, but So they're going to go into the game thinking that. And I think the defense is good enough to where even if it's like 14-0 at half, they're going to have confidence in their defense to slow them down or stop them. And then they're going to try to just, find 2 touchdowns. I could see increased usage with him, but it would be more like rushing and then like the screenplay type stuff. So you just have to hope that Texas doesn't make a breakdown and miss a tackle or 2. So
that makes sense. Are you this Davis Warren line, 150 passing yards?
I'd like to just avoid it because I'm going to be watching the game and hoping for the best. And
as somebody who doesn't hope for Michigan's best, I'm totally fair going on the lower. I like that.
I think that's fair. It's not the worst bet. I mean, that's not the lowest quarterback number I've seen.
Yeah.
Jane Blue, I like the over with the yards. I think I have him closer to like 87, 88. The question becomes, how do they use their running backs? Last week, blowout. You can't really get a good feel for it, But Jonathan Brooks was the guy last year. So the question becomes, this is kind of that percentages, right? Is he a 40% usage or is he a 50% usage for total run game, you think?
Yeah. It's tough to say with the way that they used him last week. I do think that, Wisner looked better than we thought he'd look. And so I do think that there's a decent chance that we do kind of inch back closer to that, 35, 40%. I think that Blue, though, is going to get, to me, the real decision on these picks is, do I want the 65.5 rushing or do I want to go up to the 91.5 rushing and receiving? Because I do think that he's going to get the receiving work out of that backfield, which definitely helps his fantasy production.
Yeah, and I have him at basically 19 yards. So in theory, I should like that number because I like the rushing number. It gives me a little bit of buffer with maybe popping off a big catch.
Yeah. So it's interesting. You like any of the Texas secondary? I know, Michigan's got some dudes in that secondary, but you like any of the 38.5 for Golden?
It's going to be an under or an avoid. I think I would just avoid. Yeah, a lot of these for me, and I think for everybody, should be like, it needs to be kind of an error line. You kind of have to have that strong lean one way or the other to like it. If it's like kind of close with these parlays, these slips that you have to make on Underdog and et cetera, you have to put multiple in, right? So if you're saying I have an 80% chance win and then a 50-50, you're not really helping yourself out. So
totally.
I'm probably avoiding that.
I mean, they can't all be gimmies like the 1.5 field goal over on.
I need to get the hot tamale. So
yeah, man.
Yeah, I'm so jealous of that. We kind of talked Iowa on the podcast, but let's talk Iowa.
Iowa State.
We love tight ends on this show.
But
sure. Luke Lachey 39.5 is just disrespectful. Especially,
it really is.
Even if they're not going to throw it a bunch, right? They threw it 31 times and were fairly successful with it.
Yeah.
Even if they're not fairly successful, 39.5 yards for Luke Lachey is like a slap to the face.
Totally. I'm right there with you. I feel like, that is a great line. I don't even hate the touchdown boost with the 1.73x. Obviously, we don't love playing touchdowns, but if that's what you're going for and you're, you want exposure to the game and you want to kind of boost that scorcher line that they've got out there with the pick, 1.73x is a healthy boost.
That is a healthy boost. What do you think about Abu Sama? The most interesting line of the weekend, maybe. Abu Sama, 37.5 yards. Not even sure what to think of that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not touching it just with the usage we saw last week, but dang, man. The hard part about that is, like, if we knew that this was just like a regular game and he was coming back and, I'd take the variance against like an average defense. Because you're like, okay, like maybe he gets the touches and maybe he's able to be at least efficient on it. But playing against Iowa, you can't bet on the other team being efficient because that opposing defense is so efficient. So I don't love that line or that pick at all. I have some interest in McNamara's passing over. Just with what we saw at the end of their game last week against Illinois State, they really tried some things out through the air. I think there's two ways you get home, and that's, if Iowa's game plan is to actually throw the ball earlier on in this game, like 169 yards seems completely possible for McNamara. If it's not their intended plan, but Iowa State comes out and is able to put them, behind the 8 ball a little bit, they score a touchdown or 3 field goals early in the game, which is probably more likely. Then, it really does force Iowa's hand to throw the ball a little bit more. So I'm okay with that. I know you're not a huge believer. Obviously, believing in the Iowa passing game seems like a fool's bet. But do you have any side that you like best there?
I hate to say it, but I think I do like the over compared. I mean, the 169 is 8.5. 168.5 is just such a low number.
Yep.
I do think he's a capable quarterback. That's like almost to the lines that we saw last year with Deacon Hill.
Yeah.
Oh, mid-season Deacon Hill. It got real rough at the end there.
Like 130 by the end of the season.
Yeah, it was really disrespectful at a certain point. What other games are out there that are interesting?
I wanted to see do they have anything for NC State, Tennessee? Yeah, they do.
I'm fairly positive they do. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got Nico 253.5 passing yards. That feels about right. What's Samson doing here? 71.5 rushing yards. I think I like the higher there. I don't know if you've gotten a chance to look at numbers or anything for this game.
I haven't gotten to Tennessee yet. That 253.5 for Nico feels about right, but I think I like the over. This could be a really nice high-scoring game, which should be fun. Competitive matchup. Samson's awesome, and I like the over there as well. I think just thinking about it, I mean, how they performed. Samson has been a guy that I've been really hot on this offseason, so it was cool to see him perform so well.
Yeah.
Brew McCoy disrespect at 39.5 yards.
I was gonna say that's an interesting spot right there for him. And Squirrel's number is interesting too, 49.5 after laying an egg last week.
What did you think that Brew McCoy would get 7 targets in week 1? He'd be the second highest targeted player.
I could lie and tell you, yeah, but no way did I think that.
I like to think that he's healthy, like fully healthy. He's got to be now at this point. They were doing the whole load management all off season just to get him nice and right for Nico. I think there are people that are freaking out about Squirrel and his lack of production.
Yeah, I get that.
It's so hard to say 2 targets last week, but that game was like over before it began.
Would you rather take the over on receiving yards or the over on longest reception at 21.5?
I would just do the over on the yards.
Yeah.
Over total yards, not the reception. Just because if I like Squirrel enough, I'm just going to imagine he's going to have normal targets, 6, 7, 8 targets.
Yeah.
If I were to tackle any of it, I would go under on the longest reception and just say, okay, well, like he's just not going to get targeted all that often. And I'm taking my shot on like 2 or 3 targets and it being less.
Yeah.
What about there was somebody I wanted to ask you about and it just slipped my mind.
Justin Jolie.
Justin Jolie. Colorado. Are we going back to the well and losing with the under 306.5 passing yards for Shedeur?
I don't think I'm betting Shedeur under anything that's not like absolutely ridiculous. They've just shown such intention on padding his stats and like letting him just fling it. So I'm not touching that one. I'd honestly probably go higher if I needed to put that in
one more.
Yeah. Okay. I think Nebraska is going to be able to score better / more than North Dakota State did last week. But I think it's going to be a pretty similar game from a competitive standpoint. I think Rayola is just the better quarterback than Johnson. Or was it Cam Johnson? Cam Miller? I forget his name. Anyway,
I think it was Cam Miller.
Cam Miller. Okay. I think Rayola is the better talent there, but Miller had been in that offense for longer, so they opened up the playbook for him a little bit more. I'm interested to see how Rule is going to approach this game with Rayola, and if he's going to just, throw him in and see if he swims, which honestly is probably the best choice against Colorado, but there's risk there for sure.
You know which one is screaming at me that I'm going to hit immediately after the show's over?
Is it on the Colorado side?
It's Nebraska side.
Nebraska side. Is it an under on Gabe Ervin?
It's an under on Dylan Rayola, 8.5 rush yards.
Oh yeah, he's not a runner.
He's not a runner.
He's not a track star. He doesn't.
He's going to get sacked, you would imagine, once or twice. So now he has to run it for 20 yards, 15 yards. So I'm going to hit that right after this. So if I look dazed and confused and not paying attention later, you know why? Because the show's going too long and I need to hit it. The running backs for Nebraska are interesting though, because there are so many in the mix. Yeah. I think didn't Dowdle get the start, and then
I know he got the touchdown early. Yeah,
I think he started. He might not have. I'm fairly positive he started, and then it was a big mix of like Irvin, Johnson, and Ramir.
Yeah, I don't think Johnson, they even have. Don't even think they have a Gabe Ervin.
They're scared.
Pick. They've got Emmett Johnson and Ramir Johnson.
So yeah, it's a tough mix. Colorado's defense doesn't. If they were playing a stronger defense, I might be more intrigued to hit an under here. If you are going to bet these guys, I would not put them together. Like if you're going to, one of these running backs is definitely going under.
Yeah. But you have the odds that both of them do or multiple of them do is just a bad.
The numbers is just so low. They'd have to be super pass heavy for all of them to go under. So just keep that in mind as you put your picks in. Any final games or thoughts before we make our picks?
I do like this Jimmy Horn lower than 5.5 receptions. He did get, the deep stuff last week, but he, I believe, was third in the pecking order, maybe fourth in the pecking order for actual routes ran. So, Shador liked him when he was on the field, and he liked him deep, but I like that lower quite a bit.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good one. Like you said, I think he's a little bit lower down the pecking order than it initially seemed.
I will also, it looks like we've got a comment on whether or not we think Boise State has a chance this week against Oregon. Have any thoughts there?
I don't think so. I think Oregon comes out with a little vengeance. I don't know how they didn't score more points with the amount of production they had.
Yeah.
Boise State struggled. Kind of struggled. They let Georgia Southern back in it. That doesn't make me feel good about their chances of slowing down Oregon.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. I think, especially with GNT's, being banged up a little bit, that's not something that I would want to get behind. I think Oregon's going to really unload.
Super quickly, would you bench GNT in redraft leagues?
No.
Okay, it was discussed in Slack, and I thought it was crazy, but
yeah. Crazy as in you side with me?
I side with you, yeah. I just don't think you can bench GNT. You're going to bench Ollie Gordon? I just think I don't know.
You got to bench Tet this week too. So
I just don't see a world where I would ever bench him. Yeah. I do understand in the early weeks you have matchups that are super soft. So maybe if you really hammered your draft and crushed it, then maybe, but I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. So you went 2-0. So
how are we doing this? We doing for the best overall record picks or the best previous week picks?
I think last week I let you go first because you went over. So I should go first because I'm 1-1.
I'm here for it. I think I know where you're going. But
I'll take Malik Murphy under 205.
Oh man, you're not.
I trust the lake effect. I trust Mock. I trust Mox.
He's
one
fair.
with nature. He's one with nature.
That's fair. Let me jump in here. All right. I am going to go this Burt Auburn booster here.
The hot tamale for us.
Field goals.
I'll let you. You can take another one.
And then I think I got to go Lachey over.
Yeah, nice. Very nice. Yeah. By the way, guys, if you've never done Underdog before, you can use the code C2C, and there's a deposit match, which is super helpful and nice. Gives you a little bit of a boost in case you start a little slow. I'm going to go under on Rayola rush yards. I knew
that's where we were.
That's just crazy.
It's totally
I'll take
fair.
that. I think it's moved from like 11.5 or 12.5 to that, but that's fine.
Cool.
We'll still take it here. But awesome, guys. Hope everybody enjoyed the C2C CFB UD show. This is Ethan and myself, Chris K. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the games. Happy drafting, and we'll catch you next week.